Bengals Nation came to a stop, waiting for injury news updates on Joe Burrow. We'll talk about this next, coming up on the Wincinnati podcast.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm AC.
We got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals. Dan Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still going to give you the same AJ.
I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I got to get your top 5 receivers.
Better, man.
Good. Watch out for us.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. We were supposed to go live at 12 p.m. However, as you guys probably noticed if you're here watching with us, everybody saw that Zac Taylor announced that he was going to have a Joe Burrow update at the end of practice because Joe Burrow was not at practice. We now have news from reporters there. Paul Danner Jr. is saying that basically this was designed this way and Joe Burrow week is part of the return process. So no reason to freak out, no reason to panic, no reason to spiral out of control. Joe Burrow will be back at practice tomorrow. I believe James Rapine had also noted that he was in the building, I think, that morning. So nothing to freak out about if you're a Bengals fan. Joe Burrow is going to return to practice tomorrow. This was just a formality based off of his return from the wrist injury. We were sitting in the space, Zim, on Twitter. If you're not following Zim, at Zim Hude, follow me at New Stripe City. We were waiting to get this news because obviously everybody was trying to respond to it and figure out what was going on. Somebody even had mentioned some craziness about a high school possibly involved, but rest assured, we're here now. What were your thoughts when this was going on?
And so when players usually communicate, they're doing great.
This is the Zac Taylor one going on. This is my thoughts. Did you want to queue up? I wanted to play this for everybody so they could hear.
Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't heard it already. Can you hear that?
It's a little low. If you could bring it up, yeah, bring up the volume.
He's been great. Anytime you ask for feedback from him, what's up? We've given Joe a day off every week. I didn't time this up great. I kind of thought you guys were here yesterday, so he threw yesterday, and so today's his day off. Just trying to be preventative, for me. He's been feeling really good, and so when players usually communicate, they're doing great. You push them a little too hard. So just as the coach, we got to pull back from some of those guys. But in situations like that,
This is something
we've given him a day off every week. This is a day off this week.
nothing he's asked for.
No. If you ask him, he's going to be out here every day. And that's part of the problem. He's defending the player from himself. So is this part of the growth that he's been great. Anytime you ask for feedback from him, things are always going really well. And so I've just learned, having dealing with these players for a long time now, that you got to defend them from yourself sometimes. If things are going good. That's good. Let's be smart. Limit your time. So, last week we've really never gone more than 2 days in a row. We had 3 days this week with Jackson, so we just gave him a little bit.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you have to protect Joe from himself. We all know, Joe is always pushing it out there. Even when talking to Jamar Chase over the weekend at Joe Mixon's camp, he had kind of said, hey, he tells Joe, hey, don't push it too much. If you're not feeling right after practice, take the day off, try to be safe. So it seems like they're just trying to protect Joe from himself, making sure that he's not overworking the wrist, especially during OTAs. So to me, that was a great update. It just seems like, he was more concentrated on, obviously, Zac was more concentrated on the offense and the team and the system. And then it just seems like it slipped his mind that, hey, I thought you guys were here yesterday. Comes out to be oh, you guys are here today. I'm going to talk to you guys after practice. Cool. Right.
I thought your initial question you were asking me, what did I feel about?
What did you feel about it?
There was a bit of nerves with it because so many times I feel like a lot. I'm guilty of this where I'm he'll be fine, and then there's been a couple times when he hasn't. Even when he hurt his wrist in the Ravens game, whatever. I was sitting there thinking he'll probably be back in a week or two. You know what I'm saying? I just always think I don't know, optimistic on Joe Burrow reports. But I didn't like the fact that they were like, yeah, we're going to give you this announcement later on for something so quick and so simple like that. In my mind, they should have just said, Zach, like now in hindsight, but this is what I felt before. But they could have easily said, Zach is saying that Burrow's getting the day off, but he wants to communicate and answer any questions on how he gets the day off. Just say that, like, immediately. Don't have us waiting 2-3 hours. Like, I just thought that was crazy.
I just felt like you said, I felt like it could have been said like it's a rest day. It comes out in a tweet. I don't feel like you said, that you need a press conference for that. But maybe in an effort to kind of qualm the national media, because sometimes the national media doesn't follow like our local guys. Maybe he's just trying to put a video out saying like, hey, it's just a rest day. Whereas, if someone doesn't see the tweet, ESPN maybe runs with that, or someone possibly runs with it. So that's the only reason why. But I'm with you. He could have just said that to a reporter and just nipped that in the bud, because you definitely started seeing people spiraling on the timeline, like wondering what it was, just for it to be this. And obviously we're all relieved that it is that. But yeah, they need to chill out. But like T. Brookie said, we did say stay calm in the spaces. We did keep a calm head. We didn't freak out or anything like that. So
you remember last year, this is the end of July, we was doing a show. And I pride myself in trying to, I think everybody, live your life how you want to live your life. But, for one thing that helps me at peace, I know a lot of people struggle with anxiety, a lot of different things going on in the world. One thing that helps me is, even when it's something really big, if it's a Bengals touchdown, like, I like to celebrate. But like just the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of life is to try to stay even keel and don't think the worst thing possible. So I remember last year, as I was trying to process that, and Burrow was hurt and he was on a stretcher, and we were doing the show. We were in the middle of the show.
Yeah, we were.
And you broke the news on here, and I'm so glad you was on here, because on that day when you did that, you know what I'm saying, I was just sitting there like, oh no, but Ace was super calm, and he was so calm that it made me be like, all right, well, I can't crash out. So somebody made the comment about T. Brooke just said that in Spaces, and that's the message. Like, I think so many people feed off of you. You might not be a Bengals fan listening to this right now, but so many people feed off of the negative energy of just sports in general right now. But I don't know what it is about the Bengals, but anything that is perceived as a bad thing, whether it's a Trey Hendrickson, a topic, a Tee Higgins, everybody is trained to assume the worst. Everybody is trained to say bad things or not think positively about the team. So I think it's really important, like for me of all people, and whatever you guys want to do, to just kind of stay even kill, because I think sometimes I've heard Spaces and people crashed out, and I was like, that's what the opposition wants you to do so bad. They want you to be like, Mike Brown ain't never did nothing for us. They be like, yes, tell us more. And I'm sitting there thinking like, that's not true. Like, we've been spending money. They didn't sign everybody. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm weighing out both sides of it. So I think that's how we were going. If you're late to the show, I've seen a couple comments that say what's going on. Zac Taylor has come out and just said that Joe Burrow's getting a rest day every week. He also, remember, Joe Burrow said just a week or two ago where he just said, I got to listen to my body more. Me and Ace were discussing the timing of it and the need for a press conference. But every single week he's going to have a rest day. A lot of people, shout out to Lindsay Patterson. She had messaged me and said, like, he had an off day last week. It's just the media wasn't there. Somebody else mentioned another off day 2 weeks ago, and I just didn't remember that, because when I go through all of my stuff, like in my timeline, I keep only like one thing from maybe that day, and I've been deleting a lot of stuff. I don't know what day that was. So I don't know. So apparently he's missed a day every single week, and we just haven't noticed it because of so many Burrow pictures and stuff going around, whether it's fake curly hair or whatever. Like, there's so much information on Joe Burrow that we just didn't notice it. So that is the update, is that Joe Burrow is taking a rest day. Rest assured, your quarterback's wrist is fine. Another person also commented too that Joe Burrow was seen with a wrap on it. this past week when he was throwing a football to a kid and he was at a practice too. Mind you, they had pictures of him throwing yesterday. But just as any surgery, precautionary, you're going to have sore days. They're going to put a wrap on it some days, and he's going to be ordered by a doctor in a post procedure of that nature to do that. So you might see a wrap some days.
And we want to be clear, like, just because we're talking about the wrap, it isn't that this is a result of that or anything like that. This was just a precautionary Joe's getting a rest kind of day. This has nothing to do with that. So the other big news that really came out really yesterday, it started off the morning with a bang that is definitely Bengals related, is Justin Jefferson signed his extension. It was a 4-year, $140 million contract extension. It's $110 million guaranteed, and he also receives $89 million fully guaranteed at signing. So why is this significant? Well, if you guys haven't been under a rock, obviously Ja'Marr Chase has said that he's been waiting for Jettas to essentially set the market, right? And that ties into his extension. So now it kind of looks like that JJ got the bag. Obviously, Uno has to get the bag. The Bengals, as it was reported yesterday, had yet to start any negotiations because they were waiting for that to happen. Now, I don't know if they've started now that it has, but a lot of people feel like now this might be the time to start at least having preliminary conversations to start talking this up and start to get this done. Zim, I'm going to toss it to you first to get your thoughts on the Jettas contract. I know we talked about it in Spaces, but obviously the people that are watching this may not have heard that. So give your thoughts on what the Jettas contract means for Ja'Marr Chase, what it means for Tee Higgins, and just your overall thoughts on the situation.
Man, there's a lot of layers to this thing. You know, there have been a lot of wide receivers that have been signed this all season, as we were discussing yesterday. I think the Jettas one is important because Ja'Marr Chase has made it very clear that he's going to go after Jettas. I don't, in my heart of hearts, I feel like CeeDee Lamb probably gets his deal done before it. I don't think CeeDee Lamb would get the same amount of money as Jettas. I mean, Cowboys could do that craziness. I don't know. But in my mind, like statistic, like matching them up, Ja'Marr and Jettas has that 1,800-yard season versus the Ja'Marr 1,200-yard season. So Jettas statistically is better. But the reason why I think Ja'Marr waits is because I don't think it's kind of rare because of the wide receiver market booming like the way it is, the lack thereof wide receivers in the pipeline coming in 2025, what Ja'Marr Chase's value is to a team. I think this is a rare scenario where you throw that out the window, just like the Jettas contract, 80-something million off the break. Why is that important? Ja'Marr Chase has said this over and over again that he'd rather get his money up front. I think it was Ben Baby that reported this last year, and it was another reporter too that he's done it 2 or 3 different times. They asked him, "What's more important to you, getting your money up front?" And so, him getting the money up front is not a bad thing to me. To me, if you want to see the team be able to manage the cap hits of other players, maybe the cash flow is going to be hampered because this is a lot of money we're talking. We're talking serious cash now. But the flow of the money itself, if you get the money off the break, get it out the way early on, and you're still taking the rookie cap hits of this upcoming season, you know what I mean? You would have Ja'Marr Chase locked in for the next 4 to 5 years if it was a 3 or 4 year contract. In it actually 6. Because you still have, you know what I mean? So my thing is, if you get the money out the way at the very beginning of it, then the cap hits are lessened later on. So if you're giving them 80-something up front, like how Jefferson did with 110 total guarantees, something in that ballpark, even if it's not that same number, if it's close to that, I think that to me would be good enough for Ja'Marr Chase, because the overall $35 million per, to me, is the reason why Ja'Marr wants to say, I'm going to go after him because I can't have my number be lower on an AAV on an annual salary basis. So him getting 35 just signals to me that Ja'Marr Chase get 36. that number isn't as important if you're listening to this. And I'm not trying to go into heavy detail. I feel like our show, we like to talk about certain things like that, but I don't want to take a deep dive into like contracts and stuff. But for our sake, him getting 36 and being the highest paid is a lot like Burrow's deal in this regard. You pay him the money up front. Everybody says, whoo, they're the highest paid. But the guarantees given up front and then the cap hits later, whereas Joe Burrow now has the 10th highest cap hit in the 2024 season, and then moving forward, he's still not top 3 in none of these seasons coming up. Like next year, Pat Mahomes' cap hit is $63 million. The following year after that is Lamar Jackson's cap hit is 75. Why is that important? Because that forces other teams to use cash to have lower cap hits, so they're probably going to have less players. Ideally, you want your team to look something like that because the cash flow of signing big-time free agents and stuff like that, the Bengals aren't really going to do that anyway. But one thing that they've been always selling all these guys on is paying them fair compensation for their market value at their position, and they can manage that through cap hits, and they can manage that through annual salaries, and they'll take higher cap hits on players where some of these other teams are shelling out hella cash so that their cap hits are lessened. Jamar Chase is the one rare case where they won't have that opportunity to do so, but at the same time, it lessens the cap hits. And I hope I was trying to break it down as simple as I possibly could, but that's what this looks like. There is no hometown discount. The only flexibility I could see him doing is probably saying, I don't have to have that level of guarantees, but he is going to be the highest paid wide receiver in football, whether you like it or not. It might be 0.1 just for fun. It might be 35.1. Like it might be something like that, but he's going to be higher paid, and he should. He's a generational talent. I think him and Jettas are both very special.
Yeah, for me, I don't. The way that the wide receiver market has gone, I don't know what this really spells for Tee Higgins, but I think it immediately pushes Jamar Chase, I think, to the forefront in terms of getting the deal done. They've tried the T situation. Obviously, it hasn't worked out. They had to shift their focus to Jamar. I think Jamar, from a guaranteed money standpoint, that's where it's going to get interesting, right? Like, how much does he want guaranteed? Is it going to be just the average salary, or is it going to be the guaranteed situation? The interesting thing is that they gave Joe Burrow a $40 million signing bonus. So I don't know what the signing bonus would look like based off of Jamar's contract, but I think that it's set now. Now, we did look into Jamar's agency because a lot of people talk about T's representation and stuff like that. They don't really represent too many notable players. Like Jamar Chase is the biggest player there. So this could be a situation where I feel like they may go after the guaranteed money possibly. So we'll have to see. But the one thing that I'm not worried about is, will this get done? To me, it's not a question of will it get done. It's when will it get done? Because there's no way, in my opinion, that the Bengals are not going to extend Jamar Chase. We've seen them do that. We've always talked about the Bengals always at least keep their quarterback and receiver. We've seen it with Carson Palmer and Chad Johnson. We've seen it with Andy Dalton and AJ Green. So I'm assuming that it's going to be that. But this also allows them to keep Tee Higgins for 1 year with them doing the franchise tag. So that allows them to keep him in a situation where you have seen contracts go up. We've seen guys like Jaylen Waddle get 90% guarantees. We just saw Jetta's, I believe it's around 78% guarantees. So that's the part of it that I think is going to be interesting. But I think the Bengals have been planning for this. And a lot of people have said, hey, why are they sitting on this extra money that they have? And, why didn't they allocate too much of the cap in free agency? And this is why, because they had to see the Jetta situation actually approaching and happening. So now that it's here, that has laid the groundwork. And we've seen things in the past where the Bengals have waited for the market to settle with their players. I remember seeing it with RIP Demaryius Thomas setting that market for AJ Green before they ended up doing that. I would expect if it is done this season or during this offseason, I think that it's probably announced like right before the season. Generally, that's just how the Bengals kind of do things. If not, I think you'll just see it announced at any point. So I think that happens. Me personally, to me, it may hurt the Tee Higgins situation just a little bit, just because to be able to have to give up that much guaranteed money or a signing bonus now to two people, I just don't think would be practical for them to be able to do that. But they still get to keep Tee Higgins regardless of this situation. So I would like to see this extension happen. We'll see. But this is a big domino for the Bengals, and I think it also affects other players and positions. Like we talk about the Trey Hendrickson thing, like maybe that's on hold because Duke has said plenty of times that they have this pie and they have to figure out where it's going to fall. And the biggest two slices of that pie, the biggest two slices of the pie is Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So, now they have those pieces, they have to allocate it and then figure out how the rest of it comes together. And so some people may, critique them. Oh, why did you wait? Well, we knew for a fact that Jamar was not signing until Jetta signed. He said it several times. It was out there. So as a result, the Bengals had to wait for that to happen. And so they couldn't move on anything until this happened. So now that we had that piece of the puzzle, we're good there. But Zim, let's talk about OTAs because Chase and T haven't been there. We're not really worried about that because those guys are working out. We know that they'll be there during the season. But we have been seeing guys like Yoshi starting, Charlie Jones starting. It looks like you might have something else. What's going on? You're on mute.
I was also going to say that Chase did say at the Mixon's charity event that he had this past week that he is going to be. I'm sorry if you can hear that. It's a plane flying over my head. But he did say that next week he would be reporting, to mandatory. So currently, as we speak, we're recording this June 4th around 1 p.m. Sheldon Rankins is now in the building. So he's out there. The only members that are not out there currently, I'm sorry about the planes.
That's a claim of money of the Bengals flying it out to Jamar Chase to give.
I was just about to say, Jamar, like, yeah, y'all better get that money ready to go. But the only people that are not there are Trent Brown, currently right now, Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins at the time that we're recording this. Everybody else is there with Sheldon Rankins being there today, but expect Jamar Chase as he talked to Dan Horde this past week. He also talked to our guy, Jeff Bush-Hobson. Those are both our guys, actually. But also talked to him also and mentioned that he's looking forward to being out there next Tuesday.
Yeah, definitely. So in the meantime, we've seen Yoshi get a lot of snaps. We've seen Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton has worked between the first and second team, so that's something to keep an eye on. And then we've also seen Dax Hill kind of working with some of the starters as well on the defensive side. Ocho was actually at camp, so we got to see him go up against Josh Newton. But so far, that's what's really stuck out to me is I've just been really watching Jermaine Burton to see what his role is going forward, where Yoshi's role is going forward. And the other interesting thing, and I think the underrated thing, which our good friend Malik Wright talked about, was Gesicki. Gesicki has kind of flown under the radar.
That's his boy.
We are seeing them in more 12 under center, using him in the seams. So that's a major key. And I think Zach Moss was also talking about, what it would be like to share the backfield with Chase Brown. So all indications have been that Zach Moss is going to be the starter. He will be splitting that time with Chase Brown. And then, of course, Amarius Mims, you kind of talked about it. Amarius Mims has been doing this thing. We've seen a lot of him working with the first team with Trent Brown not being at practice. That has kind of opened the door for him to get some snaps and stuff there. So, and from what we've heard and what we've seen, he seemed to be doing pretty good. Now, the Bengals don't rev it up too much in OTAs, and I actually like that because it's like, what's the point of, having injuries or subjecting yourself to injury risk at this point in time? But outside of that, I think OTAs are going pretty smooth thus far, man. We've seen Burrow out there throwing. It doesn't seem like we've seen like any issues. I have seen some other camps where the quarterback isn't even, throwing the ball even close to the wide receiver. I ain't gonna say no names, but we all saw that on Twitter the other day. And I don't know what's going on with that, but it hasn't seemed to be any of that from the Bengals side. What has been your impressions of OTAs? I know we haven't gotten together to discuss it, so I just wanted to thoughts of what you're saying.
As you was rattling out, like those different points, I was sitting there thinking like, dang, I'm so sorry, y'all, that we haven't gone live on here. I just feel like it, like Ace just outlined a bunch of different topics. But to me, I like to present like a good pot of stew to you guys. Like just coming on and say like, yeah, Chase Brown is happy with sharing a backfield. Like to me, like, I don't know, it starts to be a little a little exhausting, depending on how, but I'm a crazy Bengal fan, so I like hearing all that news. So I apologize for people being like, why y'all not going like as much as y'all was? We're going to ramp it up when the season starts. It's just, frankly, not that much stuff to talk about. But as Ace was going through those different things, I will say, though, it has been a little while since we've been on. I mean, it's been a little over a week, I guess. And since then, you had the Ocho Cinco live one-on-one versus Fig. You had Burton being able to take a signed jersey from Ocho, and, you saw Ocho talking directly with him. You saw so many good things from that interaction. I thought that was an amazing day there, too. And I wish, man, that looks so fun. So you got that. I think overall, everything happens for a reason. When Browning when it was thrust into the lineup or whatever, we saw different things that I think the Bengals can do. And that was my best takeaway, or me being optimistic about Burrow being hurt this past season. I'll take it a step further to kind of move off of that and go to this upcoming season. Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins not being there has given them so much time for Yoshi, Burton, T.I., and all these guys to go and get those reps with Burrow that they're not going to get once the boys come back out there in the building. And all this time that T isn't going to be there, I'm just projecting, I don't think that he comes back until preseason or second, third game of preseason or something like that. In this time that these guys aren't there, I think it gives them the opportunity for those guys to be in the best spots to go up against the best talent, and whether it's Cam Taylor, Britt, DJ Turner's, you're not going against the second and thirds, you're going up against the best, and you're able to really see and decide, are these guys really going to contribute to the level that we think we are going to see? And it's a great opportunity for these boys to step up. We were doing a roster evaluation. Ace had me on this Bleacher Report thing, and we were going through the 53. And, it's some cuts in there here and there that I think a lot of people are going to be maybe a little surprised, maybe a Chris Evans or Deontay Smith cut or whatever. But this is the time where everybody gets a chance to go showcase their talent. And I'm very thankful that all these guys are out there. We got the 98.9% of our team out there right now. So you don't have I've seen another team in our division missing 12 plus players. One guy's missing $750,000 and he signed his contract, what I'm saying? But they're not leading the headlines and stuff. So it is what it is, but I do feel really good about this roster. I am a little bit in a wait and see mode because last year, you remember how good I felt about this team going into the season?
Yeah.
I need to see them, trim some of the fat off, and let me see what these boys looking like when we get to, that part where I could tell you definitively, are we much better than last year? Are we about the same as last year? There's going to be some drop off here and there, but I do like the plan that they've run with most of this all season. I don't really have too many complaints, and I'm very impressed with Yoshi's of the world. I'm very impressed with Burton, of course, starting off on the journey. Chris Jenkins, I think is going to be huge. McKinley Jackson has flashed. Amarius Mims had a good video today with Frank Pollard working out in 86-degree weather, going hard on a random Tuesday. And these are not mandatory. So guys are out there fighting their butts off. Trey Hendrickson came out there and he was doing his thing. He had jammed up his wrist one day I saw in the video, but it looks to be fine. But you got that. Miles Murphy looks like a cyborg out there. So you got all this craziness.
Von Bell being back as a starter. Looks like he's starting it off. It looks like Jordan Battle is running with the second team. So
yes, sir.
And for those out there, the Zac Carter people, Zac Carter was running with the ones when Sheldon Rankins was absent. So
don't tell them that he's running with the ones. They gonna throw
back. Rankins being back. We'll see. I haven't seen much on Chris Jenkins, but like Zim is saying, at this point, it's probably better that we did it at this point so we can give you all of those updates from what we've been seeing at camp or at OTAs. So we appreciate you guys rocking with us on that. But before we get into it, we got to toss it to our good friends at Midwest Best BBQ. Shout out to Midwest Best BBQ 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Make sure you stop in and let them know Ace and Zim sent you, whether it's the wings, whether it's the biscuit, whether it's the pulled pork, whatever you like, Midwest has your back. Definitely check them out. And it's getting hot out there, like Zim said, Amarius Mims. He might want to head down to Midwest Best BBQ, get some of that ice cream because they do have that as well. 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. You can also book your orders online at MidwestBestBBQ.com. Zim, what else did you want to talk about Bengals related, bro?
I wanted to ask you, I had a question, but I do want to say this as we're recording this. Christian McCaffrey just signed a new 2-year deal extension with the 49ers, averaging $19 million per year. He'll get an additional $8 million over what was scheduled to make in his first couple of years. He's the highest paid running back in the National Football League. Don't know if anybody cares about that. But another Bengals fans, I'm sorry. But another one, I wanted to ask you, and we were talking about this off air one day. Did you think that the Jaylen Waddle contract had any impact on a potential Tee Higgins deal? And I wanted to just talk about that like briefly.
Yeah, I think that it did because I think from a Dave Mulligetta standpoint, he's going to argue that, especially if, Tee Higgins is healthy this season. I think he's going to look for possibly more guaranteed money. The reason why I feel like it is, I feel like a year ago before this situation with T getting hurt, missing games, I don't think it was a question about his health. Now, I understand that that's been kind of the talk and things like that. And I've said in spaces, I get that people feel like Tee Higgins has missed games, right? But to me, he's played majority of the seasons. This hasn't been a situation where he's missed 6, 8, any type of games. It's not a situation where he's had a season-ending injury that's required surgery. So, it's not like you're betting on a surgically repaired kind of meniscus or ACL or anything like that. So I think from his agent standpoint, he's seeing that the market is moving up from where it was, and he's going to be like Sonny in draft day said, we live in a different day than yesterday just because the market has changed. So I see him going for that. And I think if no one's willing to give him that, I think he's going to say, all right, let's go and bet on T this year, because I know that he's got a history of having, nearly 3 1,000-yard seasons. I think the other one was a 900-yard season. So I think he's going to bet on that. And I think that you will see him go after a Jaylen Waddle type number or a Devontae Smith type number or something like that. So I do think that it has affected him just because the market is just increasing.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. I don't necessarily think Tee Higgins at any point would have been paid like a top 5 wide receiver. But to your point, had they done it before, you wouldn't be running up against us. But just to go over this, Jaylen Waddle reached an agreement. Now, mind you, Jaylen Waddle, these are a couple of details I did want to talk about. Jaylen Waddle does only average 50 more snaps than Tee Higgins. So out of all of the wide receivers, it was a little bit closer. Justin Jefferson plays like who? It was somebody else that signed. Nico Collins signed somebody else. I thought it was like
Michael Pittman is probably.
Was Pittman that was the one I was looking at yesterday? I was like, bro, he plays like 100 more snaps than Tee Higgins, like on an annual basis. But just to go over the Waddle deal, if y'all missed it, now Waddle also I think is in a position where Tyreek Hill, by the time he gets to the end of this deal, Tyreek Hill will be 31, 32 years old, and you're not going to pay him top 5 money. So I think that factors into it. But Jaylen Waddle's deal was a 3-year deal, $84 million extension, and it included $76 million guaranteed, which is insane. And I just, at that point, I would have been out on the TC. Is that just a cheap Bengal in me? Because anybody else, I think, would be like, you just pay him, bro. I think when I look at a lot of these teams, they all of them have 3 guys. All the teams, like even the bad ones, have 3 guys that you're paying 20-something million per from a cap perspective, like every single year. Mm-hmm. And 49ers probably got like 4 or 5 guys, and Eagles got like 5 or 6. There are some exceptions. There are some teams that, whatever, are paying more than this, but how you divvy it up, that third guy better be a guy that's always available. And I thought Jaylen Waddle maybe isn't always available, but he is definitely very, very important to the team, and he is a number one, and he is like, you know, a guy that I think is going to be depended on from his team a lot more so than Tee Higgins, I guess, because he's just a straight up number one, and with Tyreek Hill being, you know, potentially going off. What I was gonna say, I was reading some of the comments on this hat. Yeah, this is a company called Gas NYC. Really cool people. They got a really, really dope design right here with Joe Burrow on the side. I was gonna ask Ace something else. I don't know if he had something else that he wanted to say, but I'm going to go and close this bad boy out because I really don't feel like we have too many other things to say. If you have a question or anything like that you want to ask, I will say that I will. Let me get this thing ready for y'all. Damn it, I did not have the video ready. The one thing I was going to say is that if you had a couple of questions, I was going to take a couple live questions if you want so that we can end the show. But aside from that, though, I don't think that any of those wide receiver ones that have closed recently had any bearing on the Tee Higgins one. Is there potential to get it done? I'll never say never, but I think that ship is already sailed. I think we're so late in this whole ordeal that, you know, here we are, and it is what it is. I was really good to see Joe Burrow's fine. I'm really good to see that everybody's still here. Please make sure you help us get to our 5,000 subscribers. We're getting really, really close. So if you are watching this, please make sure you tell someone to tell a friend, to tell someone else's friend to go and subscribe to this, where we try to keep it as honest, no click grabby stuff all the time and all that weirdness or whatever going on. Somebody said that we should have a raffle contest for them hats. Do we still go player hunting in some free agents? I think the one player that I'm looking at, whatever, will be interior offensive line depth or a cornerback. I think a veteran cornerback could go a long way. Another one would be a running back. Those are the three positions that I think that they need a little bit of help with. If you got to somebody, Josh K says, if you got to sign one, who you signing, Trey or T? I'm signing Trey because I got Jamar Chase. Michael Kane says 300 subs away. You're 1,000% correct. I really feel like everything that's happened so far, we've had different cautionary things happen, all these different things that we're mindful of. And I think it gives us a better football, like, skewed vision of what could happen. You know that it could go all the way to a bowl. It could end an injury, all these different things like that. But I am really, really pleased with where the Bengals are at right now. They do have some those spots that I just named that I think they could tighten up. I think Xavier Howard, Eli Apple is another name that pops up sometimes. Some of those veteran guys, Steven Nelson is still out there. Interior offensive line, that market is really dried up. I just think it would be like a waiver claim if somebody were to do that. My final point I was going to say, too, I think the Evan McPherson deal probably gets done before all of them, for Jamar Chase. But that's all I got for y'all. Appreciate y'all. Wincinnati Pod. Make sure if you're watching this right now, follow us on Twitter at Wincinnati Pod. Follow Ace or New Stripe City on Twitter, Instagram. If you go to Apple Pod Store or any streaming service right now and leave us feedback in the feedback portion of the streaming device that you're using, we're taking some of those names and we're putting them into a raffle for a free merch. So please leave a 5-star review under Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the pod when this is released. And like I said before, please make sure y'all share this with some other people. Really, really happy we got real good news on Joe Burrow and we don't have to go and have a sad show. We love you all, Wincinnati. Hoo day.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm Ace.
We got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals. Dan Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still gonna give you the same AJ. I'm gonna work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I gotta get your top 5 receivers.
Better, man. It was good. Watch out for us.